I think we're going to get started on the encrypted mail session. I'm Michael Carbone. I'm from Access. I don't know if you want to all.
My name's Joe Hall. I'm from the Center for Democracy and Technology. I'm so glad.
Yeah. Would you guys like to introduce yourself?
I'm Brian Dugan. I'm from the Open Tech Institute.
I'm Libby Reinish. I'm from the Free Software Foundation.
Cool. And basically, how this is going to work is we're going to do a brief overview of email security / insecurity. And then we're going to be talking about one of the solutions to email insecurity, which is GPG. And then we're going to be splitting up into groups, and all of us will be helping out a small group set up GPG properly on their computer. And that requires Thunderbird, a suite called GPG Tools, and Enigma, which is an add-on for Thunderbird. So those could be things that you download as we kind of walk through this presentation, or it's something that we can walk you through downloading and installing a bit later on.
Did we get like a show of hands to see who at least has Thunderbird installed?
Yeah, this Thunderbird installed.
Okay,
we got
okay. So
We
almost
got
okay.
it. You're
Okay.
that means yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Yeah, so I guess I'll get started about email insecurity. So email is basically like sending postcards. There's security was not built into the infrastructure and the protocol of email. So the corporation that you rely on for your free email, the backbone providers that provide that connection to your final recipient destination, oftentimes you're able to read your email. But there are security mechanisms that can be added. One of the most popular and implemented is TLS or SSL, which basically provides a secure tunnel for that information from you to whatever corporate provider you have, and then to your recipient.
Think of that when you log into your bank or Gmail and you see the little lock pop up in your web browser. That means you have an encrypted connection from your computer to the server.
Exactly. Yeah, and then an alternative to that is GPG, which is encrypted on the client side and ensures. And we'll have some diagrams going forward so you can kind of see that visually as it happens. But just as a note, protecting the metadata of those emails, of those communications, is actually much more difficult in terms of encrypting the from, the to, the subject line, the date that you sent that email. All of that are items that are not encrypted even with PGP. So just to keep that in mind. Just also one other thing, so encrypted email is very good for confidentiality of your communications. It's not good for anonymity. So just going off of that metadata kind of point, there are kind of different tools that are needed for anonymity that you can add onto your encrypted email suite. The main tool for anonymity is called Tor, which basically hides your location. And if you're not a known, if like your email address is not known to be connected to you, then you're also hiding your identity. Alright, so hopefully a useful visualization of the differences between basically plain text email, encrypted email that's just like an encrypted tunnel for email, and then actual PGP encrypted email. So for this, if you can break the tunnel, then you can actually see what's behind it, which is your actual email. So for instance, your corporate provider is going to be able to see your email. So that's how Google is able to run analytics on the content of your messages and serve you with ads, even though that connection to the Gmail server itself is encrypted. This PGP would ensure that even Gmail, your provider, is not able to see the content of your messages. This is way too complicated, but this is basically a chart delineating all the different combinations that you can have for email. So combining encrypted tunnels, incorporating PGP, incorporating Tor. What we're going to be focusing on is basically comparing a type of email with basically your padlock icon and email with PGP, and then the destination that we want to get people is combining both. So visually, this is what I was describing, this encrypted tunnel from the user to your web service provider, in this case Google, and then ultimately to your destination. And as you can note, even though it's encrypted such that the infrastructure that you're relying to get that email there can't surveil the content, Google can still see that content.
And we know, just the reason some of you may be here is the NSA stuff. We know that the NSA has found a way to spoof the credentials for places like Google.com. And such that you think you're talking to Google.com through this tunnel, but in fact you're sending something through a tunnel to the NSA and then through to Google. So this is, it's really important to recognize that this is a hard encrypted sheath, but that there's some dependencies in the sense that if someone can find a way to spoof your destination and make you send things to places that you think you're going to when you're really not, that's bad. And this can help you avoid that.
Yeah, so basically if they spoof Google, it's still encrypted to your recipient.
Yeah, they'd have to attack your recipient, certainly.
Is that the man in the middle thing?
Yes, that is called a man in the middle attack.
Correct. So just as an example of what a PGP encrypted email would look like, you kind of know the metadata, you can tell where it's going, maybe who it's from, but the message itself, right, is not.
Is this for real?
Yeah, it's for real. I actually wrote that for a friend. So anyway, yeah. It was perhaps too much effort. But
Thanks for passing this over.
yeah. Okay, so we're going to be focusing basically on this combination, where you have an email service provider that provides SSL TLS, that's that padlock icon, but in addition you also have PGP. So what that means is that tunnel is there, which is always helpful, but through that tunnel you actually have your email encrypted to your recipient, and only they can unlock it. There's their private key, only they can unlock that message. So even if, an SSL cert of Google gets man in the middle by NSA, even if Gmail happens to be part of some program named Prism, you still have that security for your email, the confidentiality for email. So we're going to just briefly go over some of the weak aspects of email that you often find. So in addition to having that padlock icon, so that's like the green arrow. The other issues are your recipient may not have the same mail provider, or may not have SSL TLS enabled for their mail. So that means when they access their mail, they might be accessing it unencrypted. So just as a way to further solidify the need for, encrypting to the person themselves. So these are just some of the variety of risks, I guess, or vulnerabilities that this type of setup would have. So even if you were to convince your friend to get onto an email service provider that does have SSL TLS, that padlock item, there's still the issue of the mail servers communicating, and this has actually been a relatively recent issue that's been highlighted by security researchers such as Ashton Sulkani. But most popular email providers such as Hotmail and Yahoo do not actually, and AOL, do not encrypt mail server to mail server connections. So even though you're encrypted to Yahoo, when Yahoo communicates to Google that it wants to, give that email to your Gmail account, it's going to provide that in an unencrypted way, which makes it very simple for people that have backbone access, like the NSA, to read your email. This is basically the stats on that, which you don't need to go into, but basically there are tests that you can do, they can run on different providers to see whether they encrypt the mail servers themselves. Hotmail, no. Yahoo, no. Gmail, somewhat, though they kind of fail in terms of authenticity of the mail servers, which is potentially problematic. There are also some alternatives, such as RiseUp, which do full encryption and authentication of their mail servers, which is great. That's what we want people to do. Yeah, so even if you were to get, let's say, Gmail to Gmail, RiseUp to RiseUp, so the tunnel works the entire way. Obviously, you still have this issue of the companies themselves. If you have unencrypted non-PGP email, they can potentially be forced to provide that content of your emails, as I'm sure we're aware.
This is through the sort of downstream Prism-like stuff where they compel
Yeah.
Google to give the NSA your stuff. And so even though you send it with the padlock in both web browsers, and Google's very careful about sending these bulk transfers, they can still be forced by law to get stuff up.
Yeah. In fact,
And if they have to give up ciphertext, which is a whole bunch of encrypted crap, that's great. If they give up your secret intimate details, not so great. Bad.
Starts here, that starts tonight, that starts now.